It's not how much money or how successful you get at comedy, is how much you save on therapy, is what I always say. And with these crazy times we're living in, I need all the therapy I can get.
What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at ghostcultmag.com, hanging by a thread, but hanging out with Don Jameson, the one and only. How's it going, bro?
Hey, listen, my career's been hanging by a thread for 24 years, so I know the feeling, man. But it's all going to work out.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Hey, man, I'm like you, man. I'm trying to make sense of the world, and I'm lucky I got a place to do that on stage, and I try to solve the world's problems for everybody. And it's not how much money or how successful you get at comedy, is how much you save on therapy, is what I always say. And with these crazy times we're living in, I need all the therapy I can get.
Yeah, word. There's a great meme I saw. I wish I had saved it, but it kind of went by me too quickly. And it was like, "Oh, is therapy very expensive? Have you tried just screaming death metal songs in your car and drinking beer?" And I was like, "I have. It's pretty good. Pretty good. You
Yeah.
put on some suffocation and just let it out. That's what guys have to do. We're not good at our feelings. It's just not a thing we come wired enough with. A little bit, but not enough. Yeah. Speaking of comedy, man, new record, No Sleep Till McSorley's. I may or may not have done like a No Sleep Till Brooklyn Beastie Boys thing with that on a preview piece we do every week for the new albums coming out. But yeah, man, hilarious record. And you're right, you are like solving the world's problems and out here doing the Dark Lord's work instead of the upstairs guy's work.
Well, the cool thing is, and yeah, of course, everybody, most people will recognize No Sleep Till Brooklyn, but of course, the OG is No Sleep Till Hammersmith, which is, I use the actual artwork for my album, No Sleep Till McSorley's, which was recorded at McSorley's Old Ale House in New York City. And yes, I did get permission, so no copyright lawyers coming after me from the great people over at the Motorhead camp, and got Phil Campbell to do the guitar intro. And yeah, man, I'm just really psyched for it. Metal Blade Records, I continue my association with them. It's my fifth record with them, and I'm excited. And there's a little something for everybody on there, including, the rockers, all the people on our scene.
No doubt. I am coming to you from the primary bedroom, not the master bedroom, by the way. Yeah, I know from talking to Brian, he's a huge fan of yours. So, like, I'm really glad it's fun that Metal Blade is putting out your records, and what a home for you, the birthplace of modern thrash metal, the home of Slayer, the original home of Slayer, the original debut of Metallica. Just phenomenal. I'm such a huge fan. Every time they do, I interviewed Joey Vera and saw Armored Saint last week, and it's like that band is in my DNA, like it's nutted into me from the universe of metal. I was never a swords and loincloth kind of dude, but when you listen to early Armored Saint and you hear Can You Deliver, you hear Bush screaming into that microphone, you feel like you could take on the whole world.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to see them. They're going to be my way here in Jersey pretty soon, and they're just phenomenal. And they are a fine metal wine, man. That they actually get better with age. So I agree with you. And to be part of that family, dude, is so incredible. That because you said it, man. Metal Blade's part of the fabric of our DNA. It's what's helped form our musical taste. So the fact that I'm on that label, the fact that Brian Slagle's a close friend of mine. I remember Jim Florentine meeting him before I did, and he goes, "Yeah, I met Brian. He was so cool. He's going to send me all these Iron Maiden bootlegs." And I was actually jealous of Florentine. Like, he started dating a hot chick I was in love with. That's how much Brian Slagle and Metal Blade meant to me when I was young.
Oh, the rivalry continues, Jim and Don. Jim's great. We like Jim here. His albums are not as funny as yours. Oh, but anyway, yeah, man, like this new record's hilarious. There's so much to unpack and talk about. It's the same observational humor that you always go with. I always feel like you're more of a story guy than a punchline funny guy, which I think I prefer anyway. As the guys I grew up on, Carlin and Steve Martin and Stephen Wright and Alan King, guys who tell a story less than a set up a middle and an end, right? Like I feel like the crowd that night you had in the room got it, and you talked about like the, you know, McSorley's is cool. We used to drink there. Like, you know, it's, if you're a New Yorker or an East Coaster, you know that place, right? So it's a good home for you.
For sure. And the other thing about it is like that's what you do when you go to McSorley's. If people haven't been there before, it's the oldest pub in New York, and you go and you sit there. You know, you go with a bunch of friends, and but if there's tables, chairs open at your table, they'll come down and they'll put people from anywhere to sit with you, and you end up making friends with people from all over the world at McSorley's. You know, you're best friends with people from Canada. You're going to Norway in 2 weeks to visit these other people you just met, and you sit there and drink McSorley's ale, and you solve the world's problems. And so this is that. I said this has got to be the place where I record this record. You know, in front of a bunch of beer drinkers and hellraisers.
Fuck yeah. You know, it's interesting to me. We live in strange times where everybody is so fucking sensitive. I hope that there's always a place for extreme metal, and I hope there's always a place for comedy. I feel like anything that's not hateful or directly malicious is open, is fair game. And I feel like we do have this generation behind us is kind of soft and sad, and like they can't take a joke, and they, you know, like, do you ever worry like this is the thing that's going to get me canceled? You just can't even let that enter in your mind.
Keefy, I respect so much that you think I have enough of a career that somebody wants to cancel me. But I, honestly, man, I don't. You know, I've been doing this a long time. I have my crowd. They know what to expect. Of course, I always want to expand, you know, my fan base. And so whatever topic I tackle, you know, on this album or any other albums, you know, I don't want to be the old man, get off my lawn guy. But I want people, you know, I want to make a point, but I'm going to talk about everybody. But I want everybody to laugh. So if I talk about Gen Z, I want them to laugh at themselves. If I talk about the trans stuff, I want them to laugh at themselves. If I talk about older people, younger people, doesn't matter. I want people to laugh. That's what I'm getting paid to do. But you know, there is a subtext to all this, and you know, if you read beneath the surface a little bit, you can kind of figure me out. But at the end of the day, really, honestly, man, it's just about laughing. And I've been doing this material for a few years now, and I've done it in front of every audience, every kind of person that I make fun of on this album, and they've all liked it. So I'm putting it out there in the world, and you know, we'll see what happens. And if they cancel me, you know, what are they going to take from me? You know what I mean? Like they're going to, you know, take my Motorhead albums from me over my dead body.
Word. Speaking of canceled, I love that joke about Ed Sheeran looks like the love child if Patton Oswalt banged Kathy Griffin, and I'm sorry to say, I imagined it like a second later, like, oh my god, he's doing it. Like, I love both of them, but it's like I don't want to even imagine Patton Oswalt. I know he's got a child and he's married, but like I don't want to think about him fucking anybody, let alone Kathy Griffin. It's horrible.
Well, you know,
Business.
you know, I wanted to make the point about Ed Sheeran because you know, this is a guy making how many millions of dollars a year, very, very successful. You can never take that away from him. But yet, like so many people, they want to be included in the rock world. So you see all these artists, you know, trying for a piece of the pie. And, you know, it's like, what you do you want to make way less money? I mean, what are you trying to accomplish? You say, you know, you get into the point where like, you know what, I make too much money. I want to make a lot less money. You know, I want to get on a tour bus and sell T-shirts to people for a living. And but listen, with his name attached to, I guess, Cradle of Filth now, you know, maybe that's good for everybody. You know, so you know, we'll take the help when we can get it.
He claims he was a huge Slipknot fan and Slayer fan. So, like, maybe that's, hey, listen, Beyonce didn't do a metal album. She did a country album because she knows there's an audience out there that doesn't fuck with me, and I'm going to try to go court them. And listen, there's been, like, you know, I know that people are just too fucking sensitive. When Lizzo did Du Hast, they were angry. She did it in Germany to pay tribute to her German fans, who loved it, by the way, and they took it very seriously. They didn't just like, oh, we're going to do a metal song. They actually, like, performed the fucking song with her backup singers harmonizing the do in Du Hast, like do, like backup singers. It was hilarious and great. People can't take a joke. Like I said, as long as it's not, like, overtly just fucking hateful, which isn't comedy, that's just being shitty. That's what shitty people do every day the rest of the year. And I think part of I think this digital age we're in, right? Like a lot of people have become super, like I'm so happy that like Weird Al is humongously famous and rich because of the internet. He took over YouTube and before the pandemic and became like a big star. But it's like that makes me really happy. But at the same time, it's kind of like these screens are making people weak. Like they can't read context or understand subtext, like you said. They don't get it. So I think they just like they fail at understanding comedy, so they can't take a joke, and everything hurts their feelings. You can't be there's no glass houses. Everything is fair game as long as it's not extra shitty. That's kind of where I land on it.
I'm with you, man. If something's clever, I'm going to laugh at it, whether I agree with it, if it's, whether it's if it's political or whatever it may be. If it's funny, it's funny. It doesn't matter to me. I try to keep a line right down the middle with everybody. I want everybody to have a good time. And to be honest, man, I think most of the time the crowds have actually gotten better, even though we've gotten more hypersensitive because the people who are triggered, they stay home now and argue with people on the internet. So they don't even come out anymore. And, if you think it's more fun to stay at home and have a Twitter war with some guy in Portugal with 4 followers, have fun. You probably won't like my show anyway.
Fair enough. I think the important thing about comedy, much like a band, is you have to have your set list. You have to have all your material down and ready. You can't. I know a lot of people do room work, and sometimes you see a funny face in the crowd or get a funny reaction, and go talk to them also as a kind of distract yourself, distract the crowd from the fact that maybe some people don't have material. But like I got up and tried to do some comedy here in the Bay. I did like you're supposed to have at least 5 minutes, right? I think I had 2 minutes. I had like 3 good jokes and nothing else. And again, I also like that same observational sense of humor that I got growing up also. So it's just like, it's daunting. I tip my trucker hat, my douchey trucker hat. I tip it to you because it's really hard, man. It's really not easy. It's not and I played music for 20 years before I did this. Like I talked to thousands of bands and artists, everybody from Ozzy on down. But like, it's scary to get up there by yourself with nothing and just a microphone.
For sure, no pain, no gain, right? So to me, it was, it was some of it was born out of the same thing. Like I played guitar when I was younger, and I was in bands, and I thought maybe that was the way to go. But then, after a while, it's just the drama of being, in a band with 3 or 4 other people, splitting the money, lugging equipment, and I was sort of like, well, if I do comedy, I just put my dick jokes in my back pocket and I go and I keep all the money. But then you have to figure it out. Like you said, when you get there, it's like, okay, now what do what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And, eventually, you figure it out or you don't. But, I think after 24 years, man, I like my sets to have a nice through line. The music portion of this album is sort of the happy ending of the whole thing. Like when we talk about all the craziness in the world and the phonies in Hollywood and all that, the ending is uplifting, like, hey, but the one thing we can always count on is music.
Sure. It saved my life multiple times. Riffs will save your soul. My whole life is like the metal version of Almost Famous. That's what I tell people. It really is. Except, yeah, I wouldn't throw away the Doors record, but it's fine. I'll let it be. Lester Bangs hated metal. He thought metal was childish and not smart. And then he came around to it later on before he passed away, where he was like, okay, those records were actually those Black Sabbath records I shit on. They were actually pretty good. But originally he was like, no, not that, not these guys. I love that your material is always like every single release you've had, all your shows, every time I've seen you live, it's always a new set. You might have some familiar themes because that's your your pathos, but I've never seen you recycle anything. It seems like you always have a new act every so often, which is important to make new stuff. It's like Josta said, right? You got to make a whole new group of fans every couple of years, or the fans you have, you can't count on them to stay.
For sure, man. And as opposed to what a band does, I put out a new record, or a band puts out a new record. They can't wait to go on the road and play those songs for the people. When a comic puts out a record, it's like magic. Once the rabbit's out of the hat and you know how it's done, it's not quite the same. There's definitely people who like certain bits of mine that I've done over the years, and they'll ask me, before the show, hey, you're going to do this? But for the most part, they want to hear something new. If they know the punchline's coming, it doesn't have as much impact. So, yeah, man. So for me now, it's like, the album comes out April 19th, and then April 20th is the uphill climb to create the brand new set. And it takes a couple of years, honestly, to really, hone it and get it down. And the only place I have to rehearse it is in front of audiences. So, the first couple of months, are a little rough when you're just trying new stuff. But like I said, hey, I'm proud of this. No Sleep to McSorley's. All this material is perfectly honed, and hope everybody enjoys it.
Or they will, I'm sure. It's gonna make a lot of people smile, dude. I love that. One of the other things about comedy that's really healing is it is really like comedians are really the only mirror to the absurdity of life. Like the news is beyond belief sometimes. It looks like an Onion article, but it's not. Most of the time, I'm like, is this the Onion or is this actually a story? And then in real life, like it's weird that like even our best political commentators are all comedians or people who were originally comedians, right? John Oliver, Jon Stewart, people named John, basically in general, seem to be the people that are like, oh, are actually doing the work of the former journalists because journalists are no longer relied on, trusted, or appreciated. And so maybe we're coming into a new era where you got, nobody is really safe. I think you went after Biden and Trump equally. And the first, Abe Lincoln had a drink here with Biden. That was amazing and probably true. And we can't escape these things. Like real life is ridiculous, and if you don't understand that life is a joke and death is the punchline, to quote a musician I like you just have no idea.
Oh yeah. Well, now I'm gonna change my name to John Jameson if this album doesn't do as well, and then I'll be up there with the Stewarts and all the other funny Johns. But yeah, I think you're onto something with that, man. Guys like Jon Stewart who do it so well. You can always get a message to me with humor. That you'll win me over every time if you could be clever with something, add a dash of humor to it, and make your point. I'll always listen. I might not agree, but I'll always listen, and that's super important.
This is actually really fun. When I went to grad school in Boston, right, I needed like a liberal arts class for my business degree. I don't understand that school, but that's what they wanted. So I took a class on drama and American comedy taught by like the emeritus of the USC Film School, who's semi-retired and living in Boston. And he was like, brilliant guy. And he was like, two of my students in 1966 were O.J. Simpson and Al Cowlings. He's like, do you know what they learned about comedy? Nothing from me. Holy shit, that was really funny. And so he was like, yeah, and we watched like Blazing Saddles, which is coming back, and like Blazing Saddles couldn't even get made today, Even like White Chicks I went to high school with Marlon Wayans. White Chicks, you almost couldn't make it today. Somebody would be really angry and protest, It's wild.
Yeah, but again, it's like I think Lisa Lampanelli sort of said it the best. She said, if I handed out a piece of paper and a pen to everybody in the crowd every night and told them to write down what their sensitivities are, I would have nothing to talk about. So that's the thing you got to get past. You can't worry about who's going to be offended by what. You just got to go up and do your thing. Speak the truth, but be funny and be clever about it. And if someone doesn't like it, that's fair enough. Comedy, like music, very subjective. But if you do something with humor, you'll always get me. You quoted a song by Pete Steele at the top of the interview. I love them instantly because of their self-deprecating sense of humor. Like, right, Pete was like the Stephen Wright of metal guys.
Probably loves Stephen Wright. I bet he watched Rhoda, right? Like he probably knew who Stephen. I bet he knew who Stephen Wright was. Just the droll delivery and the deadpan. Obviously a food allergy could kill you, or a medicine allergy could kill you, but a joke shouldn't hurt you. If something doesn't land, groan like you normally would in life, and just be like and then the next joke probably will hit you. I feel like I've been very lucky across my life and seen some great performances of people, but anytime there's ever been a thing that didn't land, it's like I wasn't like going to go home and die because of it. People are wild. But at the same time, that, like I said, there's a bravery in comedy. All you guitar players out there who sit home and no one ever hears your song till it's perfect, that doesn't exist. Comedy is like acting in real time with no script. The improv element of what's like the reality, the real reactions is something that is, I think that's the quality of comedy that makes it so unique and special across all the arts, just to get a little highfalutin for a minute.
Yeah, well, listen, comedy for sure, man. You get that instant slap in the face if somebody doesn't like something. And look, I write a lot. Most comics do. And if the crowd's not responding to it, I'm not going to be so proud to say, "Well, I don't care. I'm doing this no matter what." I'll keep if I believe in it, I'll keep working on it. But there's some stuff you just let go, man. And some of the stuff where you go, well, I don't think that highly of this, but the crowd loves it, and there's jokes on every one of my albums that honestly to this day, dude, I still don't know why people laugh at them, but they do. So, that's my job, make people laugh. So we leave it in.
Timing is sometimes can carry a thing that's not that funny, but the timing of how it's said and done can probably deliver the laughs. Just out of curiosity, let me just pick your brain a little bit about a few things before we go. I know you're, what a big Ozzy fan you are. Can we get this guy in the Hall of Fame? I know he's super popular because of the TV show. I don't care about Halls of Fame and award shows until it's time to get mad about them. So that's when I care. And so I just like the fact that Dave Matthews is going to get in and he should be in the Hall of Who Gives a Fuck. I know he sold a lot of records and people try to tell me how great he is. Or like Sheryl Crow is in the Hall of Fame. Todd fucking Rundgren does not belong in the Hall of Fame. Like Ozzy literally helped invent a whole genre of music, like of rock music, a subgenre. Like he deserves the credit. And like I understand he's in with Sabbath and that may be the reason. I was like, well, he's already in. But like, can we get him in? Is you think he's going to get in? What do you think?
I do, but I agree with you. You're touching on something that I believe as well. We could all have our opinion who should be in and who should not. But if you look back in time, from the very beginning of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they always tried to broaden it out. And they kept broadening it out over the years until we are where we are now, which is like Missy Misdemeanor Elliott's going to get in, and Motorhead and Thin Lizzy are not. And that's the point. I don't care anymore who's getting in. It's just the people who are not in yet. If you're going to put the LL Cool J in, that's go ahead. But you better fucking put Iron Maiden in there at the same exact time. And I don't want young MC going in there before, Lemmy or Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. But I do think Ozzy will get in as a solo artist. I think Eric Clapton's in there 19 times. So, if anyone in our scene deserves to be in there more than once, it's Ozzy.
Absolutely. I also will say, by the way, Flea is the bassist on "Just Bust a Move," Young MC's one big hit song, and he's also like the distant cousin of Dr. Dre. That's how he got a music career in the first place. But I'm not. Yeah, I'm one of those people. It's like, first of all, it's a private club and we're not in it. Second of all, they have from day one had blues, jazz, country, whatever. I like that Dolly tried to get herself like, don't put me in, and then she was like, all right, fine. Then I'll make a rock album, which was like mostly covers, and it wasn't that great. But I love that Halford is on a record with her. That makes me happy. But I'm not the person that says, oh, keep those other people out. Just let in the people who belong for rock, if that's what you can, And I agree, Maiden. Why have they not been in? Why is Alice in Chains not in? Maybe no other. Maybe Metallica is going to be the only modern metal band to ever get in, even though, and there's a Metal Hall of Fame, which we like here, but like, I just feel like if you're going to give plaudits out to people for their longevity, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, I wouldn't throw any of these bands out. Maybe Sleep or High on Fire, someday could get in. I don't know. It's hard for me. Award shows are kind of, like I said, shitty, but self-congratulatory. And metal has always been an outsider's people's music. So that's another whole separate shebang-a-bang. Let's talk about That Rocks, man. I know people love you from that metal show and people were sad to see it go. I know that Eddie is a lightning rod of controversy because he has no fucks to give about sharing his feelings and opinions. I grew up listening to Eddie on New York radio. I grew up knowing that Eddie helped put a lot of my favorite bands on the map, like Anthrax and Overkill and King's X. And I'm really glad that That Rocks is out. And I'm going to tell you, when the Skid Row news broke, and I was in my kitchen, I didn't get the story up yet here at Ghost Cult, but I was in my kitchen making dinner, and that story broke where Eric was leaving Skid Row. I went to That Rocks to listen to the three of you chop it up again. So, like, I'm glad, at least to whatever level of success that show can have as a result of your friendship and the three of you guys and your great chemistry. I'm really glad it's back in some way.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah. For people who don't not familiar, myself, Eddie Trunk, Jim Florentine from That Metal Show, doing a new show called That Rocks. So that makes two shows I've done with these guys that I did not like the name. But that being said, it's not easy to name a show. It's like naming a band. It's like, what the hell do we call this? What's available? But That Rocks is pretty easy to remember. And we got about 25 episodes up there. And yeah, we just happened to hit when the Skid Row stuff happened. And of course, there's going to be all the speculation once again with Sebastian. And it's great that we all still care after all these years. But my take on it is pretty much what I said. They tried this about 4 years ago, and they couldn't get to the first show. So I don't know how we're going to see a year or two of steady Skid Row touring when they couldn't get to the first show last time. But maybe time has passed, and maybe this is a sign in the universe, like, hey, no more replacement singers. Now's the time. So we'll see what happens. As a fan, I'd love to see it, but I'm gonna say I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I'm going to say also, I interviewed Dave late last year, and my sense from him was that they don't care for Baz. They don't, even if a fellow, Eric, listen, man, like, all respect, your life is more important than going on tour. And, a serious illness like leukemia is nothing to sneeze at for an older guy. He's been in the business, he's been around for 15, 20 years singing. He just kind of became famous in the last decade. And, the rest of your life is more important than being in your dream band. So there's other guys out there. There's other gals out there. Lizzie's going to do a great job. And but obviously I don't think that can last, because Hailstorm is a pretty important big band, and they have a new record coming out that's going to take her off the chessboard. I think Baz almost needs Skid Row more than Skid Row needs Baz, but I'm excited for Baz's new record. That first single was a ripper. And speaking of retirements and reunions, I'm so shocked about the Slayer thing, because I definitely was like, no way. Those guys, I can't imagine that Kerry was talking shit in an interview that ran a week before this announcement. We just gave away 2 VIP tickets to Riot Fest, and there's a chance I'm either going to go see that Slayer either at Riot Fest or Aftershock in my backyard in Sacramento. But like, I'm so shocked. The money must be retarded, for a lack of a good word. It must be ridiculous, because I can't believe they're going to come back for a handful of shows.
Yeah, that's what that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And I've been telling Brian Slagle, I go, it's happening, and I even predict, like, it's always an easy prediction to say a band will come back, right? But Slayer was the one everybody said, this is different, and I kept telling him, I go, give it about, I'm gonna say 5 years, and it was exactly 5 years. And, I saw Kerry probably a month before the announcement, and he was just raving about, he's so excited about the new solo album and all that stuff. And, no mention of Slayer. And like you said, he kind of took shots at Lombardo and Tom. And next thing you know, here we go. Slayer is back. So right now, obviously selected dates, but do not be surprised, because if there's money flowing like it seems to be, back on the road again.
The headliners last year for Riot Fest, which I attended, by the way, was like Foo Fighters and the Postal Service. Like, these are humongous bands. So if Slayer is getting that kind of money to do Riot Fest and Aftershock and one other thing, I'm sure they're going to get, they already have the offers coming in for Europe, even if they don't want to do too many shows, because I could see them not doing a whole tour. That's probably asking for too much from Tom, but I could see a few shows a year. And maybe that's the template in the future for other people, because we're going to start losing. We're going to start losing people. Priest's new album's a ripper, and I love it so much, Invincible Shield. But, they don't have 10 more years as a band. They have, 7 or 6 more years as a band, We're going to start losing our heroes. Do you feel like there's anybody out there in the next generation down that can be our next Metallica and Maiden and Priest and Sabbath? I don't know. I think Slipknot even is probably, the time is running out on those guys too, probably.
Yeah, I think, obviously they're always going to be headliners, but that's an act that's impossible to follow. I think Josh Todd from Buck Cherry said it the best. It's like watching the end of the world live. So yeah, those guys will always be big headliners. But yeah, look at guys like Lamb of God and Mastodon are getting, they're getting pretty huge as well. So, they're sort of, the new powerhouses in metal, and we'll see what happens after that. Also, the business model isn't the same, where, you're selling as many records, you're not reaching as many people. So yeah, will we ever have people who can headline stadiums like Metallica in our scene? Probably not. But that's okay because I hate going to stadium shows anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm indifferent. I saw Metallica 3 times last year. I was at East Rutherford and then twice in St. Louis in the Dome where they don't have a sports team anymore. It's where the
Yeah.
Rams used to play before they were left and back to LA. So yeah, I mean, I grew up a Giants football fan. I went even though it's not the same building anymore. I grew up in that area, like literally going to games and many concerts and memories. It would take all year to tell you them all. And it was kind of a special night. But yeah, I don't know about like that's not the best experience for listening to a band, or just Metallica can do the spectacle better than anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they have either. Like I wonder if we're watching the farewell tour now and they're just going to announce a retirement someday. Maybe we'll get another record and a couple more world tours. I'm pretty sure they're going to take next year off. I feel like after they do this run for M72, they're going to they're down to like 50 shows a year or less. Like it used to be 300. That tells you what you need to know. I'm sad about it, but like these guys are not kids anymore.
Yeah, but they can afford to tour like nobody else can, which is go out and do have a couple of days off in between shows, go home for a couple of weeks, go back out again. Not most bands don't have that luxury. They have to stay on the road constantly, road, and that is what wears you down. So you could see the way Metallica tours. Still exhausting, but it gives them a little more luxury of having time to decompress, relax, not push themselves. So I think Metallica probably could have another 10 years. And I agree with you on the Slayer thing, man. That there's never a reason to say this is it. There's always ways to do it. You could say, hey, we're pretty much winding down. There'll probably be some shows here and there, but I think anybody who's looking at our classic bands that we've loved all these years, and they start getting up into the mid 60s, late 60s, into the early 70s, you got to already assume I better go see them because any show could be the last show.
So true. By the way, for two guys around the same age, it was like the most married guy thing of all time for the wives of Slayer to take credit for the reunion. I was like, of course somebody's wife took credit for it. Like, Tom wasn't going to do it till I convinced him. Okay, sure. I'm pretty sure if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't be doing it. But yeah, I appreciate any help pushing him out the door, back out of the house. She must really want him home.
It's usually the other way around, right? I've talked to musicians who said, yeah, I came off the road. And I'm spending 24/7 with my spouse and they're driving me crazy. And this time it came from the wife. Like, all right, Tom, it's time to go back to work. So I'm sure he was driving her crazy because all these guys knows the road. I always picture, people have toured like that their homes, like the hallways are taped off. There's direction tape, to tell them which room to go in. There's a guy with a light, above, the bathroom when they get up in the middle of the night. Like these guys are such road dogs, like when they get home, their homes must be like, like an arena, or a venue somewhere. So it's a tough adjustment coming home after 40 years on the road.
Absolutely. Got to do, like Ozzy said, retirement sucks, and he wasn't kidding. It's hard for him to not be able to go do what he loves, and I feel sad for him. But I also don't want to see him up in a chair. I'd rather have the Ozzy or not at all. That's me. I'm selfish, but I know he's hurting to not do what he loves. Just for a last thing, I always have a wild card question to end these. I had a different one for you last time, so I try to make these interviews unique as possible. Who is the funniest person in rock or metal that you have met and hung out with?
Ooh, oh, man, there's so many, man. You didn't ask me this the last time, right? So there's a few that jump off the page, but man, I guess I'm gonna have to say Alice Cooper. Alice is just, you love a storyteller. That's what you said earlier. Alice is the consummate storyteller. Obviously I've interviewed him a bunch of times, but he's just one of those guys who he always has a great story. He always has a brand new story that you've never heard before. And he weaves this great tale and you're laughing throughout the whole thing. And then boom, at the end, that big powerhouse punchline. He's like a seasoned comedian in that way, where he really knows like, okay, I need that one last line at the end to bring down the house. Good night. I've been Alice.
Absolutely. I have never, by the way, seen a co-headline show where Alice didn't steal the show, upstage the other band. No disrespect, Rob Zombie, going back out with Alice this year, but like it's impossible to follow that guy.
It's very difficult, but I'm glad those two guys work it out together because I love them both. But yeah, you're right. That's I saw them open for Deep Purple. That was tough. Obviously, the Motley tour. A lot of people thought Alice got the best of him every night, and we've seen this before. So that he's doing it at this level at 76, my God.
I don't know what hope there is for me and what I'm going to be doing with my life if I'm still alive in 20 something years, but 25 years. But yeah, Don, always a pleasure to chop it up with you, brother. Thank you so much for being kind to us and generous. And best of luck with the new album, No Sleep Till McSorley's coming out on Metal Blade Record, the esteemed Metal Blade Records, our favorite. Thank you so much for everything, man. And I'll see you out there.
Okay, Keefy, hang in there, man. Keep laughing, keep rocking, brother.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.